Now, I wanted to ask you both as well. In the past few days, there have been Australian protests in reaction to the American court decision sending abortion controls, rights or access back to the states. Now, I'm interested in this phenomena because this is very much an Australian reaction to another country's problem. The laws in this country are absolutely clear. The free access to these facilities and these procedures are absolute. But what about this? The Guardian today was trying to trawl for stories about this. Have you had any problems accessing an abortion? Desperately trying to make this American phenomenon the Australian phenomenon. Now, Amanda, this is a very settled thing in Australia. And what is the far left in this country trying to do by pretending that we are 50 years ago when every state and territory couldn't be clearer on what the law is?
It really does reflect the need for that extreme left in our community and in our media to be in a constant state of hysteria when it comes to social issues. There is no change afoot to the laws regarding abortion in this country. The decision in the US, in the first instance, is actually one that's about democratic empowerment, giving Americans more choice and more of a say about what their policy should be when it comes to abortion, rather than having unelected judges manage it. But even when one thinks about that as an American issue, and there's absolutely nothing being done on this front here in Australia. So all of these articles you see in The Guardian and the ABC suggesting there's a fragility around women's access here are false. And there's also, I think, a need for much more good sense in this conversation to say, when we find women in desperately vulnerable situations, is an abortion really the best thing we can do for them? Or could we do better to wrap our arms around them as a community to provide real choice? That would represent, I think, a much more useful direction of all of this energy.
Well, but also it's this thing, Catherine, where these very people would literally have said to you, these are overseas stories. This is not an Australian example. There are statistically irrelevant examples about this in Australia. But again, because they want to be, understandably, in lockstep with the people who are angry on another country. But it is another country's laws that they're trying to fire up about. And I think that, again, there was a story that was around yesterday about some problems that people in regional Australia had accessing abortion services. Well, breaking news, it's hard in regional Australia to access, heart specialists. So that was them desperately trying to find the Aussie version of the back streets of Georgia. What do you think?
Oh, well, look, over 80% of Australians support access to abortion. That, unless something dramatically changes there, our right will... I don't think there'll be any changes there. Yeah, in WA, it's still not decriminalised, though. It's just about to be decriminalised in South Australia. I mean, but as you said, we're different to the United States. And if it had been fought out there 50 years ago, when feminism was at its zenith, I have no doubt that most American women would have access to safe and affordable abortion. But instead, you had groups like the ACLU and Planned Parenthood who went off message, and they're now referring to, pregnant people and womb carriers, and they busied themselves worrying about that ideology instead of concentrating on the women and girls.